Kevin Miller's palms were dark with grease when the first real alarm sounded. Not because of the '97 Honda Civic on the lift, he'd already chalked that up to a tired CV joint, but because of his marriage. Standing in the shop at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, rubbing a rag the color of old oil, he stared at his phone. Melissa's message was clipped, "Don't wait up. Girls' night again." Again? It was the second time that week and it was only Tuesday. He thought back to the early years when she'd bring him lunch in a sundress, a brown paper bag from the deli in hand, unbothered by the whistles and jokes from his crew. "That's my grease monkey," she'd tease, kissing him even as oil darkened his sleeves. Now she recoiled if he touched her, as if the honest grime of his work were somehow contagious. The shop was quiet, his employees had gone home. Kevin dropped the Civic and filled out the work order, but his thoughts kept circling the differences he'd started to notice. When did Melissa begin buying those expensive blouses? When did she swap her familiar vanilla body spray for a sharp floral that made his nose itch? Their credit card bills told a story, charges at Nordstrom, Sephora, stores she used to mock as frivolous. "You're reading too much into this," he muttered as he locked up. The March air bit his face as he walked to his truck. Maybe she's just trying to fit in at her marketing firm. Richardson and Associates have a certain image, she'd offered once. Her boss David cared about appearances. At home, though, the house felt strangely hollow even with all the furniture in place. Kevin microwaved leftover meatloaf and ate standing at the kitchen counter, glancing at their wedding photo on the wall. 12 years earlier they'd been so sure, he'd vowed to care for her and she'd promised to love him as he was, a simple man who fixed things with his hands. When Melissa arrived at 11:30 that night, Kevin lay awake. She moved through the dark, brushing the dresser and laughing softly. Wine was on her breath, and beneath it, cologne. Men's cologne. "Fun night?" he asked. She jumped. "Jesus, Kevin, I thought you were asleep," she said, flicking on the bathroom light and squinting. Her lipstick was gone though she'd left wearing it. "Sarah had us try this new wine bar. You'd hate it. All fancy and overpriced." "I might have liked it," he suggested quietly. She snorted as she pulled off her heels. "Please. Last time I took you somewhere nice you complained about portion sizes for 20 minutes. That had been 2 years earlier, one offhand joke about tiny lamb chops. 3 days later Kevin tried again. He stopped at the florist and bought the yellow roses she used to love. When he walked in with them, Melissa was at the kitchen table sorting her purse. She glanced up, saw the flowers, and for a second her face registered annoyance before she smoothed it into something neutral. "Oh, those are nice." "What's the occasion?" she asked flatly. "No occasion. Just thought," he said. Then something slipped from her bag, a small blue box. Unmistakable. Condoms. They hadn't used protection in 5 years, not since they'd been talking about kids, talks that always stalled because she said she wasn't ready yet. Melissa's hand snatched the box away. "They're not mine," she said too fast. "Sarah asked me to buy them. She's seeing someone new and was embarrassed." The lie was slick, practiced. "Sarah's 43 and divorced," Kevin said slowly. "Why would she be embarrassed about buying condoms?" "I don't know, Kevin," Melissa snapped. "Maybe because this town is small and judgmental." "God, not everything is a conspiracy," he muttered as she stormed upstairs, leaving the roses on the counter. That night Kevin lay awake listening to Melissa's breathing. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, once, twice, 3 times. She snatched it and mumbled, "Sorry, work emergency." In the brief flash of the screen he'd seen the contact name, not David, not boss, just D. The pieces began to slot together, the new clothes, the uptick in girls' nights, the unfamiliar cologne, the condoms, the mysterious D texting at midnight. Kevin Miller had spent 15 years diagnosing machines, finding the subtle signs that pointed to a bigger problem, a strange noise here, a vibration there. He had a reputation for being methodical, thorough, never jumping to conclusions without proof. But lying in the dark, with his wife's phone finally quiet, he knew with the same certainty he used to identify a blown head gasket, something in his marriage was catastrophically broken. And this time he didn't know if it could be fixed. He went to the Rusty Anchor because Melissa never would, same sticky floors, same busted neon, same bartender who'd seemed old 20 years ago and now simply belonged to the place. He chose it because her crowd drank craft cocktails under Edison bulbs and exposed brick. Tommy Rodriguez sat in a back booth looking every inch what he was, ex-military turned private security. They'd played football together in senior year, back when Kevin still let himself believe a scholarship might be possible, before his dad's heart attack, before Kevin took over the shop at 19. "You look like shit," Tommy said, sliding a beer across the scarred table. "Thanks." "Real helpful," Kevin replied and took a long swallow. "I need a favor." Tommy watched him. "This about Melissa? How'd you find out?" Kevin asked. "Brother, everyone knows," Tommy said with a grim edge. "She's been all over town with that boss of hers. Sarah saw them at that Italian place on Madison last week. The hostess said the reservation was under Richardson." Kevin tightened his grip on the bottle. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Would you have believed it?" Tommy shrugged. "Nobody wants to be the messenger who gets shot." He reached into his jacket and produced something slim that looked like a thick pen. Voice-activated recorder. 12-hour battery. Picks up everything within 20 feet. "Where are you thinking of putting it?" Tommy asked. "I don't know if I can do this," Kevin admitted. "Then don't," Tommy said simply. "But you've got two choices from where I'm sitting: confront her with nothing and watch her lie, maybe convince yourself you're crazy, or get proof and know for." "Sure." Tommy pushed the device across the table. "Sometimes the truth hurts less than the not knowing," he said. Kevin stared at the small recorder, such a tiny thing with the power to blow up a marriage. "Behind the picture frame," he said at last, "the one on the mantel." She never moved it. The next 3 days crawled. Kevin kept the routine: open the shop, change oil, rotate tires, replace brake pads. His hands stayed busy, but his mind raced. Every time his phone rang he braced for Melissa saying she'd found the device. She stayed oblivious, distant as January. Thursday was inventory day. Kevin usually stayed late checking parts and placing orders. But at 4 p.m. he decided to surprise Melissa, her favorite Chinese from the place that always nailed the orange chicken. Maybe they could talk, really talk, about whatever was pulling her away. He pulled up 3 houses down and froze. A new black BMW sat across from his house, sleek, expensive, the sort of car that announces executive pay. Kevin's truck rolled to a stop, his heart hammered when he recognized the Richardson and Associates parking sticker on the windshield. Through the living room window 2 shadows pressed close on the couch, too close. Kevin's hands shook as he dialed Tommy instead of barging inside. His voice came out strained. "I need you to get that device tomorrow." "Kev, what?" Tommy started. "Just get it. And I think I need a real investigator, someone who does this for a living." Kevin hung up and drove back to the shop, sitting in his office until midnight staring at nothing. The Chinese food went cold on his desk. When he went home, Melissa was asleep, or pretending to be. The living room smelled wrong, same cologne as before, mixed with something else, intimacy. His house smelled like someone else's closeness. On Friday he waited until Melissa left, yoga class or wherever she actually went, then met Tommy in the garage. Tommy handed him the recorder and a business card, Maria Santos, best PI in the state. Discreet, thorough, no judgment. Kevin plugged the device into his laptop with trembling fingers. At first there was only silence, then Melissa's voice rang out, bright, laughing in a way Kevin hadn't heard in months. "God, David, you're terrible," she giggled. "No, he won't be home for hours. He's always at that stupid shop until at least 8. David Richardson's voice responded smooth and confident. "I don't know how you stand it. Coming home to Captain Grease Stain every night." "He comes home literally covered in oil," Melissa said. "It's under his fingernails, in his hair. I have to wash the sheets twice a week to get the smell out. Last week he tried to be romantic, brought me grocery store flowers like I'm some small-town housewife who gets excited about carnations from Kroger." "You deserve better, baby," David murmured. "I have better. I have you." Sounds of kissing followed. "The poor bastard has no idea I've been screwing you for 6 months, Melissa said, voice low and vicious. "He still thinks I'm at book club when I'm at your apartment." David laughed. "Book club? That's brilliant. My wife thinks I'm working late on the Gavin account. How's the suburban prison? Janet still boring you to tears?" Melissa asked mockingly. "Please," he scoffed. "She's gotten so frumpy since the kids. At least your grease monkey stays in shape." "Don't call him that," she protested, then paused. "Actually, call him whatever you want. 3 more months and I'll have enough saved to leave him. You're still going to promote me to senior account manager, right?" David assured her the paperwork was ready. "Can't have my future ex-wife's future ex-husband's wife struggling financially." More laughter, more intimate sounds Kevin wished he could unhear. He replayed the recording 3 times, each word drove another nail into the coffin of his marriage. 6 months. She'd been unfaithful for half a year while he'd only been realizing something was wrong in the last few weeks. Kevin opened a fresh notebook, the same one he used to track repairs, and at the top of the page wrote, "David Richardson, 1247 Oak Drive." Beneath, "Married to Janet Richardson. 2 kids, Emma, 14, and Michael, 11. His hand stayed steady as he added, "CEO Richardson and Associates. LinkedIn shows 400+ employees. Company handbook prohibits supervisor or subordinate relationships." He glanced at his oil-stained hands, calloused from honest labor, and thought, Melissa was right about one thing: he was just a mechanic. But mechanics know how to take things apart piece by piece, and they know which bolt to loosen to make an engine fall apart. Maria Santos did not look like a private investigator, short, mid-40s, wearing mom jeans and a cardigan. She could have been picking up children from soccer practice, which, Kevin learned, was the point. "Nobody suspects the suburban mom," she said as she spread photographs across his desk. "I can sit outside a Starbucks for 3 hours and everyone assumes I'm waiting for my teenager." The photos were damning. Melissa and David entering the Marriott downtown at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday when she was supposed to be at a client meeting, his hand on her lower back as they walked into his apartment building, the 2 of them kissing in his BMW behind her office. "This is 2 weeks of surveillance," Maria said, pulling out a folder. Hotel receipts charged to his company card, same room, same time, 3:14. The desk clerk confirmed they're there every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. Kevin studied each picture and each receipt. His wife had become a stranger. "What about the money?" he asked. "Ah, that's where it gets interesting," Maria replied, opening her laptop. "Small withdrawals from your joint account, never more than $200 at a time, but it adds up. $3,400 in the last 4 months. She showed him credit card statements, charges at law agent provocator. "That's not Target lingerie, Mr. Miller. That's expensive stuff, more than some people's car payments." "I've never seen any of it," Kevin said quietly. "I'm sure David has," Maria answered, matter of fact. "There's more. She's been steering clients to David, inflating her numbers so a promotion looks justified. It's borderline fraud." Kevin recorded every detail in his mind like he catalogued parts. "How many copies can you make of this?" he asked. "As many as you need," Maria replied. "You planning something?" she asked when he told her his anniversary was in 2 weeks, March 15th. She studied him over her glasses. "Most men in your position would have already confronted her or done something reckless," she observed. "I'm not most men," Kevin said. "I fix things for a living. You can't repair something properly if you don't understand exactly how it broke." Over the next week he became obsessed with David Richardson. The man's LinkedIn was a collage of corporate buzzwords: synergistic leader, passionate about driving stakeholder value through innovative market solutions. His Facebook projected the perfect family: Janet, pretty in that tired suburban way, kids in private school uniforms, vacation photos from Disney and Cabo. David belonged to the Chamber of Commerce, sponsored a Little League team, posted Sunday Bible verses, and just last week extolled the sanctity of marriage and family values. Kevin screenshotted everything. He found the company handbook on Richardson and Associates website, page 47, section 3.2, romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and subordinates are strictly prohibited and will result in immediate termination of both parties. He made copies at the shop after hours and organized manila envelopes. One for Janet Richardson with photos of her husband and Melissa entering hotels. One for HR at Richardson and Associates with receipts showing company charges. One for Melissa's parents who still believed their daughter to be the perfect Christian wife. Envelopes went out for her book club friends, her college roommate, her sister in California, each containing a plain, typed letter: "I thought you should know the truth about Melissa Miller, née Collins, and David Richardson." The enclosed documents detail their 6-month affair, conducted during work hours and partially funded through company resources. "I'm providing this because people deserve to know who they're trusting with their friendships, their business, and their families. No emotion. No plea. Just facts." The hardest part was pretending everything was normal. When Melissa complained about oil on his clothes, Kevin promised a shower at the shop. When she rolled her eyes at his suggestion of watching a movie, he didn't push. When she announced another girls' night, he simply nodded and said, "Have fun." But he noticed everything now: the way she smiled at her phone, the new password on her laptop, the pack of birth control tucked inside her tampon box, even though she'd told him 6 months earlier she'd stopped taking them so they could try for a baby. 3 days before the anniversary, Kevin finished organizing the evidence packets when Melissa wandered into his makeshift home office, a corner of the basement where he kept paperwork. "What's all this?" she asked, seeing the stacks. "Parts. Invoices," he replied smoothly. "New supplier needs everything in hard copy." Ancient system, but their prices are 30% lower. She wrinkled her nose at the oily papers. God, can't you keep that stuff at the shop? Sorry. I'll clean it up, he said, apologetic. She was already heading back upstairs. Oh, for our anniversary let's keep it simple, order pizza, watch Netflix. I'm exhausted from this quarter's campaigns, she called down. Whatever you want, he answered. It's your day too. That night Melissa took a call during dinner and stepped onto the back porch. Kevin watched through the window as she laughed, a bright, animated laugh she used to reserve for him. Her hand painted the air as she talked, probably to David and probably about him. Kevin looked at the sealed envelopes in his desk drawer. Tomorrow they'd go in the mail, time to arrive March 15th by 10 a.m. His lawyer had the divorce papers ready and filed. His new bank account was set up. The locks would be changed while Melissa was at work. As she laughed in the cold March air outside, something shifted inside him. The pain remained and perhaps always would, but it had crystallized into something harder, sharper, something useful. He'd spent 12 years trying to make Melissa happy. They think they're rescuing her. That afternoon I caught Renee packing a suitcase. She looked up with a defiant tilt when I stepped into our bedroom. I'm staying with Jessica for a few days, she declared. Actually, I said, closing the door behind me. You're going to tell me about Asher. The blood drained from her face. I don't know what you mean. Your 17-year-old son with Trevor Mills, the child you told me died at birth. Renee collapsed onto the bed, her hands trembling. How did you find out? She whispered. What matters is that you've built our entire marriage on a lie, I said. She looked up, tearful. I was going to tell you after you'd stolen every penny meant for the child you abandoned. I didn't abandon him, Renee snapped. I made a choice to give him a better life and you chose to lie to me for 14 years. Reed's investigation exposed the full scope of Renee's deceit. We met in his office 2 days later. The insurance fraud was the worst of it. Reed laid the papers on his desk. She collected $50,000 on a forged death certificate, then used that sum to pay for your wedding. I stared at the documents, our whole relationship funded by fraud. It got worse. She was still married to Trevor, she never divorced him. Legally, our marriage could be void. The implications hit me hard. That meant Michael might not be my biological son. I ran a DNA test, what it revealed shattered my assumptions. That evening I sat Michael down for the hardest talk of my life. Dad, you look serious, he said as he settled opposite me. Son, I need to tell you some things about your mother and me that will be hard to understand. I explained gently that Renee had been lying, that she had another son he'd never met, and that she might be leaving. Does this mean you're getting divorced? Michael asked. Our family will look different for a while, I said, but you'll always be my son and I'll always take care of you. He was quiet. Is this why she's been acting weird? Probably. Are you going to be okay, Dad? His maturity made my chest ache. We'll both be okay, buddy. I promise. 2 days later Reed called with news that changed everything. The police wanted to talk to me about the insurance fraud. Renee was in custody. Relief and sorrow washed over me, relief that the lies were unraveling, sorrow that Michael would learn his mother committed a crime. What happens now? I asked. You focus on rebuilding your life, Reed said. You and Michael, you're stronger than you think. As I hung up I realized he was right. I was stronger than I'd believed, strong enough to face the truth, protect my son, and begin again. The woman I thought I'd married never existed. But the man I'd become fighting for my family's future was real. 3 weeks after the arrest, Reed arrived with news that would shatter the rest of my world. "William, sit down," he said. "Michael was at school, which was fortunate. I got the DNA results 3 weeks ago," he said, pulling a manila envelope from his coat. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. Michael isn't your biological son. He's Trevor's. I kept hoping he was wrong. I ran the test 3 times, but the result held. Renee and I had been together when she got pregnant. Apparently she had been with both of you. The timeline overlapped perfectly." Reed set the documents on my coffee table. "William, I'm sorry. I know how much that boy means to you. Michael wasn't just my son, he was my whole world. The thought of losing him was unbearable." I asked quietly, "Does this change anything legally?" Reed told me that because my name was on the birth certificate and I'd acted as his father for 13 years, I retained parental rights. "But if Trevor finds out and fights custody, he won't find out," I interrupted firmly. "Not from me, not from you, not from anyone." "William, think carefully," Reed said. "Keeping this secret is exactly what I'm going to help you do." I replied, "Michael is my son in every way that matters. No DNA test will change that." That afternoon I picked Michael up from school. He clambered into the car full of teenage talk about a science project and a math teacher. "Dad, you're quiet today," he observed. "Just thinking about work stuff," I lied. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Are you still upset about Mom?" he asked. The question cut deep. "I'm upset about the situation, not your mom specifically," I said. "Do you think she'll come back?" I pulled into the driveway and looked at him. "Michael, your mother made some serious mistakes. She'll face the consequences of them," he said quietly, "but she's still my mom." "Yes," I agreed. "She'll always be your mom and I'll always be your dad. Nothing's going to change that." After dinner I stared at the DNA results in my study. Reed had been thorough, there was no doubt about paternity. But as I read that Michael wasn't my biological child, a new realization rose. I didn't care. I'd been there for his first steps, his first words, his first day of school. I taught him to ride a bike, helped with homework, and sat up with him when he was sick. Trevor might have contributed DNA, but I had given everything else. The next morning I did something that would have seemed impossible a month ago. I called a lawyer to start adoption proceedings. "Given that your name is on the birth certificate and you've raised him for 13 years, this should be straightforward," the lawyer said. "Especially with the mother's legal troubles." "What about the biological father?" I asked. "He's never been involved and has no legal standing, though we must notify him as part of the process." "Absolutely not," I said. "There has to be another way." The lawyer looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Brewster, I understand your concerns, but legally, find another way," I insisted. "That man is not going to disrupt my son's life any more than it already has been." Leaving the lawyer's office, I realized I was prepared to fight anyone, even the legal system, to protect Michael. Biology might define genetics, but love and commitment define family. Michael was my family, whatever a test said. Renee's trial was set for 6 weeks, but she was released on bail. I wasn't surprised when she showed up at my door on a Tuesday evening. I was prepared. "I want to see Michael," she demanded. "That's not going to happen," I replied, standing in the doorway. "He's my son, William. You can't keep him from me." The irony cut through, given what I knew the demand was absurd. You lost the right to make demands when you built our marriage on fraud, I said. I made mistakes, she said, but that doesn't change that I'm his mother. It doesn't change that she's his mother, I agreed. But it changes everything else. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. Michael doesn't need to see you right now, he's been through enough. You're poisoning him against me, Renee accused. I haven't said a word against you to Michael. I didn't need to, your actions spoke louder than I ever could. Her expression hardened. You think you're righteous, don't you? Let me tell you something about your precious son that might change your mind. My blood ran cold. Somehow she discovered the DNA results. Michael isn't yours, she said, watching me. He's Trevor's. You've raised another man's child for 13 years. I know, I said simply. Her surprise at my admission was clear. You know, and it doesn't change anything. How can you say that? He's not your blood. He's my son in every way that matters, I replied. Blood doesn't make family, love and commitment do. Two things you clearly don't understand. Renee stared as if seeing me for the first time. You're going to keep him, aren't you? Even knowing the truth? There is no keeping him, he's already mine. Has been since the day he was born. She said desperately, Trevor has rights. When he finds out, he won't, I interrupted. You're not going to tell him. If you do, I'll make sure every detail of your insurance fraud goes national. Asher will read about his mother in the papers. It was a bluff, but Renee didn't know that, her face paled. You wouldn't do that to Asher. Try me, I said. You want to play games with my family? I'll play harder than you can imagine. She stepped back, shaken. I never meant for things to get this complicated, she whispered. Now you have to live with the consequences. I moved toward the door. Stay away from Michael. Renee, if you love him at all, let him heal from what you've done. I turned to face her. And if you don't stay away, you'll discover how far. I'm willing to go to protect my son. After she left, I found Michael at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up when I entered. Was that Mom? He asked. Yes. What did she want? I told her it wasn't a good time. Michael nodded slowly. Thanks, Dad. I'm not ready to see her yet. Take all the time you need, buddy. There's no rush. Watching him return to his homework, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in months. The truth about his paternity hadn't changed how I felt. If anything, it strengthened my resolve to be the father he deserved. Biology may have tied him to Trevor Mills, but 13 years of love had tied him to me, and that bond mattered more than any DNA test. 6 months after Renee's arrest, the legal process concluded. She pled guilty to insurance fraud and received 3 years probation with community service. More importantly, the adoption papers for Michael were approved without contest. Congratulations, Mr. Brewster, the judge said as she signed the final documents. Michael is now legally your adopted son. I looked at Michael sitting beside me in his best suit. At 14, he understood the importance of the moment better than most kids his age. Does this mean Mom can't take me away? He asked softly. No one can take you away from me now, buddy. We're officially family. The irony wasn't lost on me. DNA had tried to separate us, but the law had brought us back together. Sometimes the system works. Reed was waiting outside the courthouse. How does it feel to be officially a father? He asked, shaking my hand. The same as before, I replied. Nothing really changed except the paperwork. Over the past 6 months, Michael and I had grown closer. Freed from Renee's chaos, we built new routines and traditions. He began calling me Dad more often because he wanted to, not because he had to. Asher had reached out twice wanting to meet his half-brother. I declined both times, not out of spite, but because Michael wasn't ready. Maybe someday they'd meet, but it would be on Michael's terms, not anyone else's agenda. "What about the college fund?" he asked on the drive home. I'd recovered most of the stolen money through Renee's restitution payments. "It's all there, plus interest. You'll be able to go to any college you choose." "What if I want to stay close to home?" he asked. "Then you stay close to home. Your choice, son." That evening we celebrated with pizza and a movie, just the two of us. Simple, peaceful, normal, everything our lives hadn't been for months. During the credits, Michael said, "Dad, I'm glad you found out the truth about everything, even though it was hard." "Why's that?" I asked. "Because now I know you really want me here. Not because you have to, but because you choose to." His words hit harder than any DNA test. This boy, my son, understood what I'd taken months to learn: family isn't about genetics. It's about choice, commitment, and love. "I'll always choose you, Michael, every single day." "I know, Dad. That's what makes you my real father." As I tucked him into bed that night, I realized something profound. Renee's lies had almost destroyed us, but they'd also given us something unexpected: absolute clarity about what mattered. Michael was my son, not because of biology, but because biology didn't matter. We'd chosen each other, fought for each other, and built something stronger than DNA could ever measure. The woman who tried to tear us apart had instead made us unbreakable. 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of our renovated house watching Michael help his friend with homework at the dining table. We'd changed everything about our living space, removing traces of Renee's deception and creating something purely ours. The settlement from the insurance company had been generous enough to pay for renovations and fully restore Michael's college fund. More importantly, it had given us a fresh start. "Dad, can Jake stay for dinner?" Michael called out. "Of course," I replied. "I'm making your favorite anyway." Cooking had become one of my unexpected talents over the past year. Michael and I had learned together, turning meal prep into quality time rather than a chore. My phone buzzed with a text from Reed. Renee completed her community service and moved to another state to be closer to Asher. "Thought you should know." I deleted the message without replying. Renee's chapter in our lives was closed and I had no interest in reopening it. "Mr. Brewster," Jake said when I brought them snacks, "Michael's lucky to have a dad like you." "I'm the lucky one," I replied, meaning it. Later that evening, after Jake went home, Michael and I sat on the back porch talking about his plans for high school. He wanted to join the debate team and maybe try out for baseball. "You know what's funny?" Michael said, looking up at the stars. "What's that?" I asked. "I used to worry that I wasn't good enough to be your son. Now I know you weren't sure you were good enough to be my dad." His insight amazed me. "How do you figure that?" I asked. "The way you fought for me, you had to prove you deserved to keep me." "Maybe I'd have to prove it to myself if not to anyone else," I said. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, enjoying each other's company. "Dad," Michael said eventually. "Yes, son." "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For choosing me. Even when you found out about, the DNA stuff." I had never told him about the paternity results, but somehow he'd figured it out. Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for, I said. Michael, listen to me carefully, I added, turning to face him. You are my son, not because of genetics, not because of legal papers, but because we chose each other. That's what real family is. I love you, Dad. I love you, too, son. As we headed inside for the night, I reflected on how much our lives had changed. The lies and betrayal that had nearly destroyed us had instead revealed what truly mattered: trust, commitment, and unconditional love. Those were the foundations of real family. Biology was just genetics. What Michael and I had built together was stronger than that. We'd survived Renee's deception and come out better for it. We were no longer a family held together by assumptions and convenience. We were a family forged by choice and strengthened by adversity. And that was worth more than any DNA test could ever measure.